Hello and welcome back to the AI Marketers Playbook, where we cover actionable frameworks to help you leverage AI and marketing strategies in your business. I'm Audrey Chia, and today I have with me Eugene Woo, the founder and CEO of Venngage, an AI-powered platform empowering non-designers to create professional visuals with ease. Now, Eugene has a background in engineering and a deep love for storytelling, combining them both to eliminate creative friction by making design accessible with the smart use of AI. I am super excited to dive into today's conversation. Welcome to the show, Eugene.
Thank you very much, Audrey. It's a pleasure to be here.
I took a peek at your LinkedIn profile and I know you have a wealth of experience in, a couple of different areas. Would love to know a bit more about your journey before starting this company and your, I think, 13 years, right, at Venngage.
Yes, sure. I mean, to give long story short, I have a background in engineering and software engineering. That was my first job. I have a degree in computer and electrical engineering, and I had and from my job as a professional software developer engineer, I had a very traditional career path. I started out my first job was with Motorola. It may not even be in LinkedIn anymore because it's so long ago. Uh, and I kind of just went from big company. I did some stints in some smaller companies. I had some stints in some startups, and then eventually, went out and tried to do my own startup. I failed, and then essentially went back getting a job, which was a very interesting experience. A lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about that. And I think it's a good experience. People think it's the end of the world. It's not. I just went back and got a job again. And thankfully, because there were lots of jobs as software developer, it was not an issue at all. And then I started again. I had an agency. I had a mobile app agency back in 2009, I want to say, maybe 10, when the mobile app store started and all that. So I was on that quote unquote gold rush, did some apps, and then eventually moved on to infographics and design. And before I built Venngage, I built another tool called Visualize Me. It was an infographic resume tool that took your LinkedIn profile and just connect your LinkedIn profile, and it would visualize your experience. It would give you this infographic resume. Like there would be a timeline for your experience. There would be graphs for your skills. It was really cool. And I actually sold that company to a larger company called Parchment, and then moved on to Venngage after that, which is the infographic and design tool suite that I continue to run after like 12 years.
Wow, and that's like a super colorful background. I am so curious, how did you make the leap from someone with an engineering background to design? Like, there's such a big gap between both worlds. How did that come about?
I get that question a lot. I get that question from my brother because he's the creative. I'm a twin. And my brother is actually a movie director. He's
Oh.
based in Southeast Asia. He was based in Malaysia for a while. I'm from Malaysia originally. He always ask me, you're like the nerdy guy. Like, how did you get into design? But long story short, I actually have not breached the gap yet. I'm not a designer. I'm not a professional designer, but I build tools for people like me who are non-designers. So Venngage is kind of like Canva. We're like a niche Canva. Essentially, it's a tool for non-designers. It's a simple to use tool. And I essentially bridge that gap by building a tool for someone like me who didn't want to learn how to use like Adobe tools like the Illustrator and the Photoshop, which was very, very complicated. I mean, I learned a little bit about it, but I was like, wow, this tool is way too complicated. We need something a lot easier to build, and back then I was building infographics, but we need something, and I can solve it with code and, with a simple, WYSIWYG editor. And so I would say like I definitely haven't breached the gap completely. I cannot design things like a professional designer, but I can get there with, well, especially now with templates and AI tools, you can get pretty far with design.
Yeah, wow. And since you've spent like 13 years, I'm sure the design landscape and the creative landscape must have changed a lot, right? So how has that journey been for, yourself as the founder of a company? Like, do you have to evolve the tool, as times evolve? Are there new needs in the market that you tried to address? What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think when we started, so we started in one category. We started in infographics. That was like the only thing we did. And then obviously, like Canva came out and came. we actually started around the same time as Canva. Like it's,
Oh,
and they've
wow.
obviously blown up like to be this massive company. And they, I think they started in social media and then they just went to every other category that you can think of. And we saw that, and as they were going, we were like, oh yeah, we should expand. So I think one is the expansion into adjacent categories. So we're not in many categories, but we're in like posters, brochures, mainly in business, I would say B2B business categories, more of the more boring design stuff. Like we do a lot of like reports, plans, training type things because they're closely related to infographics. So I'd say number one is that like evolving with the market. And then in the last few years, things have been moving from like more of a template-based tool. So, like Canva and Venngage and a lot of tools in this category or mainly they're template-based, right? You pick a template, the template looks nice, and then you just, change the template, change the color, change the images. So in the last year or so, you're seeing this change from a template, pretty much a template-based design tool to more of a prompt-based, AI-based tool where people now are, instead of, and I can show you later on, like you're basically just prompting. And then whether we pick the template for you or we actually create the layouts with AI, there's different implementations depending on what you're actually trying to create. We're now seeing that change where it goes from a template to an AI, and then same with the assets in that design. So the icons and images. Before it was all very stock. People still use stock images and stock. Don't get me wrong, it's still widely used, but there's definitely a shift now to generate image generation, right? Like of assets. And it's great for branding because it's a lot easier. Well, we can go into branding if you want. Like it's a lot easier to generate a set of icons that are branded as opposed to going and
Yes.
look for stock icons or stock photos. Everyone's going to look different. Like if you do, and that was one of the big problems we had before. So now with AI, the workflow is becoming like instead of going out and trying to look for things that match your brand, you can just generate it, right? So I would say the workflow is slowly shifting into that, and we've shifted our tools quite a fair bit. Like we build out a lot of AI tools I would say AI pages slash tools to sort of cater to that change in the workflow.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, right? Because with, the evolution of tech and with new capabilities, I think people are starting to also be a lot more comfortable exploring tools and then integrating these tools into their workflows. So perhaps in the past, what a team might do is to outsource it to a creative industry.
Right.
Now they can do it in-house, and they have maybe even non-designers being able to build out brand guides, being able to build out visuals that are still brand compliant. I think what is also interesting, like what you said, was the use of AI to generate things that are perhaps a little bit more specific to your brand, because other than like picking different icons, you can generate new icons, you can
Right.
generate visuals that look and feel like your brand, which I think is interesting. What other kinds of like maybe creative developments have you noticed, over the past few years?
I think the like if you look at the workflow of a designer, like a lot of times the first step is it's sort of the inspiration step where you go to Pinterest or you go to some other you get your mood board out, you look at different, like you go to Behance and or whatever it is, look at other people's examples. I think if you start from that, even that process, the first step, now a lot of times the first step is, oh, I just go to image generation and type in what I want. Like let's say I want a poster for my birthday party or whatever. I'm just giving you an example. Instead of like looking for inspiration, now I'm looking for inspiration with image generation, and I'm generating maybe 4 or 5 different examples, and I can just change it. I'll go like, I want it to be look a bit more like playful, like change the color, like I want the colors to be like more vibrant, for example. And you can do that. I wouldn't say it replaces the other process, but I'm seeing more and more of that. Like even for me, like we're seeing more and more of that now. And in fact, we're building a website generator, a website
Oh.
builder that does that. So the inspiration stage is we generate a bunch of examples for you based on your
Mm.
prompt, and then you pick the style that you want, and then we can generate more examples, and it sort of acts as that mood board. So I would say even at the inspiration stage, it's great for inspiration stage right now. It still doesn't replace a professional designer. So I would say along the way, you still need good design skills, but definitely inspiration and simple designs like logos, like simple things, I think AI can get you like 80%, 90% of the way.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing that maybe people don't realize is a lot of people think that copy and design is easy. I am a copywriter, so I've heard that
Right.
it's just words, right? Like, how hard can it be? Like, it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
an image and a font. How hard can it be? But what they don't realize is there's so much thought that goes behind making a piece of work stand out. And on a design front, because I work with so many designers,
Yeah.
sometimes when the founder says, just change it, isn't it easy? And then they go like, oh, you don't understand how much work went into that design.
Yep.
And I think as much as we love AI, that human eye for that design is still perhaps important in the
Right.
process, especially in the ideation part. But what do you think would be perhaps, a better AI human workflow? Like, in your opinion, what does that ideal creative model or process look like?
So I think you are very right that a lot of people, especially on social media, they're like, oh yeah, like design, Figma is dead. You can just like design the whole, you can just design everything with AI right now, or whatever the big claim is. I think you are absolutely right. You still need skills. So even that example I give about like, oh, you're generating examples for inspiration. You still need good taste, like you said. You still need to know if you're a brand like designer, if you want branding, you still need to know what is on brand, off brand, right? You still need to know like what I would say the skills that a good designer or a good copywriter has, it's still necessary. You can generate as much text as you want, but if you cannot pick, you cannot choose and
Yeah.
curate it, it's still useless as far as I'm concerned, right? And we see that a lot. We see people generating the same thing over. I mean, I can tell when an image is generated on ChatGPT. They all kind of look the same, right?
Yeah.
Now, for example, Studio Ghibli is like on everyone's generating like I know like you can recognize it like okay that's just generated. They
Yes.
didn't put a lot of thought in it, and they didn't really the prompt is very simple, and they certainly don't have good taste because they're just generating. Well, Studio Ghibli stuff all looks nice, but if they were generating without that prompt, you can tell like yeah this it's just a normal person generating it, and I wouldn't use these images on my website, no way. So
Yeah.
so I think the workflow is still the the professional copywriter or the designer still necessary, and they're just
Yes.
working with a tool like the AI is just a tool. You can't just unless you have you're a person with very good taste and who has those skills, you still cannot go in and just generate like your whole brand kit and all your brand assets, for example, right? You can theoretically do it, but it probably won't look very nice,
Yeah,
right? Just
definitely.
as yeah, yeah.
I think like what you said, like maybe you can still write copy and you can still design some stuff, but is it gonna look great? Is it gonna read well? Is it gonna convert?
Yep.
I guess that's another like big question. But what do you think perhaps, with like what you said, the Studio Gilby kind of images with ChatGPT 4.0 image gen, right? Now AI is making it even more accessible to more people out there. Do you think it's going to disrupt the creative industry? Because I know that a lot of creators out there are also a little bit nervous about
Hmm.
what AI can do. And I think 4.0 image gen feels like ChatGPT for copy when it first launched. So when I first tried ChatGPT when it first launched as a copywriter, there was that sense of like, what am I
Right.
gonna do now? And then
No,
and then this moment felt the
right,
same for ChatGPT
right,
4.0 image gen for I guess many designers. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on perhaps how creators can,
right.
work
Ma-
around this? And what kind of like tensions are there?
I mean, I would love your point. Like, what has changed? And I mean, it's been like 2 years since ChatGPT come out. Like, obviously, you still have a good business, and even I mean, I would guess you have probably more demand than less demand now. Am I right?
Yeah, so I think interestingly, what AI has enabled me to do is I work so much faster than before.
Right.
So perhaps if last time my capacity was this much, now it's
Hmm.
triple because I work so quickly and now I can like delegate tasks to my GPTs or my
Right.
mini interns, and that has helped a lot. But I also recognize that ChatGPT has evolved so much that in the past, I would say it used to be a new intern at an agency. Right
Right.
now, it's easily a mid-weight copywriter
Right,
if you
right,
know how to prompt. And that's
right,
just in 2 years. That's at
right.
least what I've
Yeah.
noticed.
But so I think I would say it's very similar in design that still need to know how to prompt. So I always say this, like most people when they use a tool, they just put in the most basic prompt and they'll go like, yeah, the results aren't great. Then they'll go to someone who knows how to prompt like you or like me, who know like I do a lot of image generation prompting, any kind of prompting I use. And I would like, yeah, that prompt is too basic. Like I will
Yeah,
prompt engineer, I would test, you know, a lot of different prompts. I will test different models. Like in our work, we test multiple models. We test multiple prompts. Our prompt engineering is, you know, sophisticated, not like a normal person. Like
yeah,
and I think that is still a skill. That skill is still something that the GPTs don't do. It's something that professionals do really well. Like you said, like we are using similar tools, but we're using them in a different way, in a more
yeah,
sophisticated way, and we're getting better results. So for the creatives out there, yeah, if they're not using AI, then yeah, they're going to be left behind, like 100%. They like they're not going to be able to keep up with the designers who are using AI. So I
yeah.
think designers who are using AI will flourish. They will learn like how to prompt better. They will learn how to use different models. They'll learn how to edit faster, and they will evolve. And those who don't, I mean, like they're gonna if they're stuck with the old model, then they're in trouble for sure. I think there will be a
A
group of
gap.
designers who will be they'll just be in trouble, because they'll fall behind for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that even you highlighted that, right? Of course, there are two camps of people that I've seen so far. People who perhaps are open to using AI, and there are people who are like, no, AI isn't
Yep,
creative. I refuse to use it.
yep,
But at the
yep.
same time, then they are not realizing that businesses themselves are evolving. So if you are, not an agency and you are a company, you will start thinking about how do I build internal capabilities so that I don't have to pay an agency. And if you are an agency, then it's like high time that you consider your own model
Yep.
of how you want to integrate AI, because in the past agencies used to charge clients by the hour, and that is not going to be possible with the use of AI moving forward. I think things have to evolve quite a bit, in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Like the hour, you know, the this is the problem we face too because in our design in our design tool, the faster we solve the problem, the less money we get paid because people will churn faster. We used to say that, yeah, if we solve the problem really fast, they'll churn faster because they don't need to use the tool for like a month to design something.
Yeah.
They spend a day and they're done, and they may be creating like many, many things. So I think any tool, especially AI, sort of compresses that where you're no longer charging for time anymore, but you have to charge for value, right? You have to say, this is how I price it's a logo. Maybe it took only 5 seconds for the AI to generate, but I had to do it, but it's like you said, it's like you have the skill, you know how to prompt, it's on brand, it's something that you yourself, the client wouldn't be able to do by themselves. And you're going to charge, whatever you charge for coming up with that brand. I mean, I don't know. It's, I would say minimum a few $1,000s. Maybe it only took a few seconds to generate it, right? But you're charging, the pricing has to change for sure.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see how we shift from a more like time-based economy to a more value-based economy, because
Yeah.
time is no longer the best measure perhaps of the work that you're delivering. You mentioned something, Eugene, about testing different AI models and
Mhm.
different prompts. Can you walk us through that process? Because not everyone is familiar with prompting, and not everyone is familiar with prompting for designs.
Sure, sure. So I'll talk about image generation in general because I think like we do a lot of prompting on ChatGPT as well because we write code and all that. But in image generation, most people will just do simple thing like, oh, can I, let's say you want to create like you want to create a photo for your website. Like, create a photo for, they'll do something very generic like that. Create a photo for my marketing agency. Maybe some people, and then you'll get some generic like image. It'll look good because, for the most part, most image generations would look good. But what we usually do is we have an intermediate step where we'll use ChatGPT or an LLM to create prompts for us, to actually create the prompt. So we'll say like, okay, in a marketing agency, create some image generation prompts. And then we put in the brand aspects, like, it's a professional, whatever setting, maybe it's local, maybe they only do local SEO, for whatever we put in there. And we'll say like, create some scenarios for us or some scenes in prompt. So then ChatGPT will create a whole bunch of, I would say, fairly detailed prompts that describe the scenes. Maybe it's like a group of people in a meeting, a person on a whiteboard. I mean, I'm giving you like pretty cheesy. Sometimes you get some good ones, some pretty cheesy like images. But essentially, that's what it creates. We call those magic prompts or enhanced prompts. So instead of a one sentence prompt, it is usually like pretty long, like a paragraph, maybe like 5, 6 sentences, sometimes even longer, depending on how detailed it is. And sometimes we get stuff like, okay, well, you can use some metaphors and symbols. If you have an abstract concept like strategic marketing, let's say, it's so abstract. Like, if I type in generated image for strategic marketing, you will get like random stuff. You will get probably, I would say, maybe a word that says, you'll get something like that. But if I say, hey, generate something that symbolizes, or an object or a scene that can symbolize this, and then ChatGPT will generate a longer prompt. So we use that prompt and then we put it into the image generation. So there's intermediate steps, usually 1 or 2 steps before we even go to the image generation. And in the image generation, we use a variety. Well, 4.0 is pretty good now, but 4 is actually really slow from an API point of view. I don't know if you've used it, like even on your app, it's slow. So in production, we actually use Flux, which is stable diffusion. So everyone remembers stable diffusion. Basically, stable diffusion evolved into Flux, Flux, and they're a lot faster. I would say they're not as, they're probably as, hard to compare depending on your needs, but they're as good as 4.0, maybe not as good as some stuff, but better in a lot of stuff than 4.0. Even their old models are just as good. Nobody uses Flux a lot, but we use Flux. We also use Ideogram, which is another image generation company, and we use Recraft sometimes. Recraft is just to test the models. So we would test it on like at least 4 different models and see, hey, which one gives us the best result. And it varies on use cases. Sometimes, for example, like, logo generation, Flux is good enough. It's like a simple thing. And if you want like photorealistic thing, maybe 4.0 is better, but it takes like a long time. Oh, and we use Gemini too. Sorry, we've also used Gemini to test. Gemini, for the most part, I hate to say this, but they're okay. They're not the best. They're okay. And so that's the process. We would get the prompt engineering done, and then we would try a bunch of generation. And for us, because it's production, we don't just look at quality, we look at speed as well. So 4.0 is really slow. I mean, if you can use it right now, it's just, no one's going to wait 2 minutes for an image. Like, it just kills the process, especially if you want to create like 10 images for your website. It's just you're going to sit there for 20 minutes, right? And it may be okay for an individual doing it, but if you're waiting on a tool, it's too slow. So we need something a lot faster. We need something like that can generate in like 5, 6, maximum 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of interesting points you said, right? So one is like the speed of generation. Most people don't consider that. But like what you said, when you're building a tool, you don't want your customers to churn, to drop off. You need it to load, and they expect things right now. So I think even 4.0 is like really slow for most people, and I can see why. And I think the second thing you said is being able to test different models for different use cases. So I've noticed a similar thing for copywriting. Even Claude, for example, is better for example, for long form human-like copy, but ChatGPT could be better for content strategy and figuring out, a step-by-step process. So even that, right, there are some nuances in using the different AI models, and you only know it if you try it, and you only know it if you test it and you spend time testing it.
Correct. Yeah. And most people don't do that, right? Like ChatGPT, there's so many models, 4.0, 0.1, 0.3, 4.5. and I have the biggest. I bought Pro, so
Wow,
I have
power
access to
user
it.
right there.
I'm not. I would say like I barely use any Pro features. Like they have Operator,
Really?
and I find Operator just really slow. It's clunky, and I think O1 with search like performs better than
Better than that.
Operator. Yeah, and deep research. I'm not a researcher. I've used research not only a few times, so I probably will cancel Pro. And I used and I you know I got it just to try it out. But even ChatGPT, like back to the point, there's so many different models, and I'll be honest, even I know which ones are good for coding, but for like copy and all that, I don't know which one's the best. Like sometimes pick 4.0 for because it's the default one. Sometimes I pick O1. Yeah, it's I don't know. I think that's
Yeah. And you really have to spend time, like even though 4.5 is supposed to be good for writing,
yeah.
I sometimes think that 4.0 performs a lot better. I'm not sure why, but
Okay.
the output is a lot better. And sometimes I toggle between 4.0 and some of the thinking models
Yeah.
because I wanted to think about certain things first before writing it. And again, these are things you'll only know when you put it to the
Yep.
test and you
Yep.
try it daily
Yeah.
and you put like that rigor behind that work, right? But that's also what separates, an AI powered designer versus someone who's just using AI, once in a while or for fun. There is going to be a distinction and it's good to learn some skill sets. Now, Eugene, I would love for you to show us perhaps a quick demo of what the platform does and then walk us through some of that behind the scenes process so we understand how it works.
Sure, sure. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so this is the Venngage website, and in here, if you go to products, there's a bunch of AI tools. So we have a whole bunch of AI tools. For the most part, we're known for infographics, and I can show you this infographic generator, but I'm just going to use this. We also have a generic generator. It just generates a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just going to use one of these prompts just because. So we're making this is a very simple prompt. It's infographic about effective social marketing strategies. And what we're doing behind the scenes is we're obviously using like ChatGPT to create the copy or the outline. And once that's done, there are two different ways where we create the template. One is where we actually just pick a template and
Yeah.
then we put the content in there. The other one is we actually generate the template, and it depends on your prompt. So if your prompt is really easy, we typically just pick a template for you. If you copy and paste an entire outline, and you can do that, we will actually use dynamically generate the layout for you. And so it's generated this, and if I click on, I'll just click on customize. So if you click on customize, it'll take you to the editor. So this is our WYSIWYG editor. Like I said, it's drag and drop. It's like Canva. It's pretty easy. And so what we do here behind the scenes, we not only do the copy, we also figure out the icons. You can see sometimes the
Wow,
match isn't great. Like
interesting.
I think this one looks fine. This one looks fine. Tracker performance looks fine. Engagement is okay. Yeah, I don't know why they content. I guess that's a pencil, and
Content,
I'm
yeah.
not sure what this
Target
is.
audience is
Yeah,
cute. It looks like a
I don't know.
cup.
Is that yeah? I don't know why this one was picked. So as you can see, sometimes the icon generator or the icon picker also makes mistakes,
It's
and so
AI.
that
It's AI.
yeah yeah so that is a there's a very quick example of what our tool does, and in our tool there's a bunch of stuff you can do, like you can brand it. I'm just branding it. Sorry, I'm branding it to Venngage branded. This is our colors. And then you can edit it like a normal. I think the advantage of Venngage over an image generation tool is with an image generation tool, you're kind of stuck. You cannot really edit. I mean, it is what it is. And with this, I can edit it, right? Like I can say I want to replace this with a. What would I replace this with? I don't even know what a good target audience is.
How about like like
Yeah.
the bullseye,
Like a
like yeah,
bullseye. There you go.
yes, yes.
There you go. See, now,
That's
so I
right.
can do that. So so this allows you to kind of customize it to your liking, and the generation of the AI it becomes like an assistant. Like you said, it's kind of like your junior designer or even your intermediate designer, and then you still have full control of what you want to change and what you want to do. So that's an example of a simple generation.
Wow. And I wanted to ask, right? So AI also generates the copy on the infographics for you.
Correct. Also the copy as well. Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow,
all of this
cool.
is like, I think what was the original? It was infographic with effective social media marketing strategies. Yeah. So
Got it.
it generates the copy as well. So if I put in something like, I don't know, like you can, it will generate a different copy if I put in something else.
Wow, so interesting. So basically, you have a simple prompt in which you get another prompt to flesh out that simple prompt,
Correct.
and then you now put that more complex prompt into the tool, and then it generates the visual and the copy for you in like a customizable layout.
Correct. And it also generates the icons. Picks in this case, I think it's just picking an icon. I'm quite sure it picked the icon. It could be generating it as well. So there's various tools that we use, tools as in the tools that our AI uses. Sometimes it's generating icons, sometimes it's just picking icons from our stock library. And
Wow,
it just depends.
interesting.
Like I actually don't know for these look like they're not generated. They look like they are actual icons from our library, but they could also
Got
be
it.
generated. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that
No.
I cannot tell with simple things like icons. I cannot tell with to be honest. So we generate the icons and then we remove the background and then we convert it to an SVG. So
Yes.
it's exactly like a stock, like something we would get from our icon provider. So we have an icon provider, Icons 8, that provide. We have several icon providers, but they provide us these, lots and lots of. Actually, I can tell if I put Rocket in there, if I see the same one, yeah, so it's the same one. So this is actually from our stock library. It's
Interesting.
not generated. But it's hard to tell now with a simple line icon like that. It's really, really hard to tell whether it's
Yeah,
generated or it's from a stock library.
yes, and the stock library could easily have generated the first version of icons as well. You
Correct.
never know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
and and we haven't added it in here yet, but we are gonna add our icon generator in the search bar as well, so that you can just generate it as opposed to like searching for it, I guess.
Cool. How about like what other features do you have besides infographics? Like what other kinds of like assets do people normally create?
So I mean, like you can see, like we have a lot of brochures. We have a lot.
That's a very good
Having
use case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we do. I mean, we do infographic brochures, posters, a lot of things like charts, and even our presentations are very because our background is in infographics. Things like
Yeah.
charts, presentations have a lot of charts in them. There are a lot of data in them.
Yes.
So we, essentially we also do a bunch of marketing stuff and more business related things like reports. So a lot of B2B cases like reports, proposals, business like plans,
Yes.
and a lot of internal communications. So we're mainly. So you're saying like, hey, how are we very different? How are we different, or how do we differentiate from someone like a Canva? Like we
Yeah.
mainly focus a lot on internal communications,
Yeah.
although some of it is external, but I would say that was our biggest one, and we're more of a B2B. Our customers are more B2B as opposed to a B2C type customer.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I think the use cases, for example, your chart generators, creating brochures, right? These are very specific for a company. And I think for like a company that does a lot of comms, right? You probably need to generate like tons of this every year. So obviously leveraging AI is like a no-brainer kind of option for them.
Yeah, and we're coming up with, like I said, we're coming up with a website generator now. So there's a few different things where we're exploring AI agents. I'm sure you're familiar with that topic. So we're exploring AI agents, not just a design agent. So the design agent sort of will be built into it's sort of built into the editor right now. The editor is this thing over here. And what we are gonna be exploring now is the things that happen after you. So we're trying to figure out, like, for example, email is one of those things we're trying to figure out. We do newsletters a fair bit, so we're trying to figure out, like, can we just get an agent to do a newsletter for you every month or every week or whatever it is, and generate the copy, generate all the visuals, and including the email itself, like sending, and then integrating with an email provider and just sending it out. So that's like an example of like moving towards a sort of an agentic workflow, as opposed to just design and then I'm done. But now it's like design and then distribute as well, design and distribution as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting topic by itself, right? So, with everyone slowly moving towards the more like agentic kind of like workflows, right? I know it will take a while, but I have already seen a couple of businesses and founders really trying to build on this. What do you think the future of work is gonna be when that happens? It's such a hard question to
Yeah,
answer.
it's a very hard question to answer. I do think that we will be working beside agents, just like we will be just like how we're working beside like humans now. And I think like on your Slack, so we use Slack on our work, for example. On our Slack, we would have both humans and agents in there, and you would just be like chatting with them the same way. That's how I think it would work. Like, let's say you have an email marketer agent, just using my example of email marketing, and you'll just say like, hey, can you, make an email newsletter this week for me on, and the agent knows all the context. Hey, we want to send it to this segment of the customers, and make it, highlight this, or like send out a discount code. There's a sale, and then it'll just do it for you, and then it'll send, and then it'll reply and say, yeah, it's done. Oh, do you want to check it? Do you want to check the campaign? I'm like, no, I don't want to check it. Oh, you check it and then you fix it. If you don't want to check it, you just go, yep, just go ahead and send, right? Just do it, right? And it's kind of
Yeah.
like how I would communicate to my to my marketer right now, except that it's actually an agent doing it. I think that's going to happen eventually, where it's hard to distinguish whether the agent is a human or not, and we'll
Yes.
have a name for that agent as well. So it'll be like, hey, Andy, and it's an agent, like update this campaign for me, and and send it out. I think that's how it's gonna work. It feels like that's how it's gonna play out, and then. But back to what you said, I think humans are still going to be required to, you're still curating, you're still, making decisions, you're still putting the strategy in, and then any original content still has to be produced by humans, right? Because at the end of the day, the LLMs and the image generators, they are just mishmatching existing content. Yes, they can
Yeah.
create new content, but it's limited to what they know. So anything new still, I think, has to be generated by humans. I think so. I mean, if I'm wrong, then yeah, then maybe we don't need humans. But I think the humans are still necessary to, it's like, people say like, oh, SEO is dead, content is dead. I'm like, but where will LLMs learn? How will LLMs learn if humans
Yes.
aren't generating content on the web that the LLMs scrape and add and learn from, right? So humans still need to do work. It's not like they don't have to do
Yes.
work. They're still adding to the knowledge base, and they're adding to the creative base for images and all that.
Yeah, and I think in the world where in the future where it's a lot more AI powered, right, there will be a sea of content that probably looks a lot more similar, and that's also when that human like creativity, that newness or like that rawness could eventually be the thing that makes a brand stand out so much more
Yep.
than other brands.
Yeah.
You never know, right? But for now, because you're in the early stages, I highly recommend you to start picking up AI so you can bridge that gap from the human to AI phase, and then the eventual get from the AI back to the human phase. I see it as like a wave of change
Right.
that we are on.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe Eugene, like before we wrap up, I would love to know maybe one perhaps key learning that you have from running your own company for the past 13 years. I know it's a big question, but I always think it's interesting to pick the brains of, a founder.
So I think to me, one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that you don't have to do something new. In fact, most of the time as founders, we love, the new shiny objects. We love like to jump on trends. And we always think like the grass is greener. We're gonna try this because it's working somewhere else. But I think what I've learned is that you should just do the thing that already works and do more of it and do it better. Like it's a very boring advice to founders, and even to myself. A lot of times I'm like, oh, we have to do this new thing because it's oh, look at our competitor like doing this and this. Let's do all of these new features. But at the end of the day, when I go and look at the data, and we've done that before, and we'll see like, yeah, for whatever reason it didn't work, but you know what's working? When we put more focus on our core categories, our core customers, and that's boring because like I've been doing infographics for 13, 14, 15, if you add my previous company, like 15 years now. Been doing for the most part doing designing tools for infographics for like 15 years. Same problem. I am like quite bored. I'm not saying bored with it, but I could be quite bored with it. And there were moments when I'm very bored with it. But at the end of the day, you can get a lot more leverage by just focusing on the thing that you already know and the thing that you're good at, where you already have customers. You just double down on it. That would be my advice to most people, instead of chasing the FOMO new shiny object thing that is on the internet right now.
I loved it, like AI or just joking, but and you,
I mean, AI for sure.
AI.
For sure, go into AI, but use AI to stick to your niche, right? Like as opposed
Yes,
to
definitely.
I don't know, like what's whatever is like whatever is like in vogue in AI now, like generating apps in AI now with all these new tools that's in vogue right now. Like, don't build another tool like that if you don't have experience there.
Yeah.
Use AI to do something you have experience with.
Yeah, I think like what you said in wrapping up, right? Like for me, I adopted AI to then figure out how to best leverage my skills as a copywriter. I didn't learn AI for like finance or something.
Right.
I could, but I don't have interest nor expertise.
Hmm.
So I would double down on what I know best. And I think that actually really helps you to maximize your full potential and helps you to build like a business that then is sustainable and something that really is true to your core, your skill sets, your expertise that you can do for the long term. So have a think. And Eugene, thank you so much. Where can our listeners find you and who should be reaching out to you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, just search Eugene Woo or Venngage, on Twitter or Instagram, or you can send me an email. Like I'm just Eugene@venngage.com. So I do answer them. I don't get a lot of emails, so I do answer something. Yes, for the
Send
most part.
Eugene an
Yeah.
infograph if you want to. But thank you so much for sharing your insights, Eugene. And thank you, folks, for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the bell for more actionable AI and marketing insights. We will see you next week. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Audrey.